Today. My name is Shane Nass and today we are here to talk about day 2 of match day 2 in the UEFA Champions League, and believe you me when I say it's set to be a very action-packed night of Champions League football. Why? Because instead of the normal 8, there are going to be 9 matches this time around, because the first day, which was Tuesday's action, only saw 7 matches. So today we're going to be seeing a whopping 9 matches played out, and believe you me when I say almost all of them are in their own ways exciting. So let's just take a quick look at what all matches we can expect to see and what it is that we'd expect to be happening in terms of results, who would be the favorites, and so on and so forth. The first match of the night, and these are of course earlier kickoffs, because you'd remember that there are certain matches which kick off at 10:15 p.m. IST, whereas others kick off of course at 12:30 a.m. IST. This is the first of the 10:15 matches. It'll see Shakhtar Donetsk take on Celtic. Now, both of these teams actually made a pretty contrasting start to their Champions League. Shakhtar ended up getting a win. Celtic, on the other hand, ended up losing to Real Madrid, so not exactly an ideal start for them, despite the fact that it was a home match for them. So for Celtic, the key thing for them is going to be to actually get a win and ensure that their Champions League campaign doesn't actually, face an uphill battle going into the next 4 matches. Whereas for Shakhtar, the key would be, of course, to get a win and ensure that they get 2 wins out of 2, because this would be one of those matches where they would fancy their chances of actually winning. The other, early kickoff is between AC Milan and Dinamo Zagreb. Now, both had some pretty contrasting starts to their campaigns. Milan, of course, had a draw. Dinamo Zagreb with an upset 1-0 win over Chelsea. That, in fact, not only ensured that Chelsea started their campaign with a loss, but also cost Thomas Tuchel his job. More on his replacement in just a bit, but this, I think, would be a very interesting match, because again, Zagreb have proven that they do have that ability to be the David to other Goliaths, and AC Milan, as far as the Champions League goes, are giants. You'd remember that they've won the tournament the second most number of times, behind of course only Real Madrid. They are the defending Serie A champions, and they've had a very good start to this particular season domestically as well. Now, of course, AC Milan would want that they can get their first win this year, because again, last year when they made it to the Champions League, they had one too many draws, and then they kind of lost momentum later on into the season. So this time around, they want to get a win and of course maybe get their campaign started so that they can make it to the knockout stages and not just exit in the group stages. For a club like Milan, playing in, of course, the knockout stages is imperative to them. Now, in the other matches which will be starting later on in the day, you have Rangers versus Napoli, and again, 2 teams that made very contrasting starts. Rangers ended up with a loss. Napoli thumped Liverpool 4-1 at home. So obviously crunch time for Rangers, because they know that a second loss could, of course, derail their campaign, and they worked very hard to actually get there, because they had to go through the qualifiers. But this time at least they're going to have the backing of their home fans in Ibrox, so that should be there. But Napoli are not an easy team. Just ask Liverpool how tough they found it facing the Neapolitans at home. Of course, key this time is that Napoli are the away team, but we note for a fact that on match days like these, sometimes home and away doesn't really matter as much. I, for one, am just excited to see a competitive match, and I do think that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's men, of course I'm talking about Rangers, are better than what they looked in their first match. But this would be the time to actually prove just how good they are, so that their campaign doesn't actually begin on the back foot and that they don't face an uphill struggle for making it to the knockouts. The other key match, of course, Chelsea versus Red Bull Salzburg. Now, this is an interesting match for a variety of reasons, especially for Chelsea's new head coach, Graham Potter. Not only is it the first match that he will be managing for Chelsea, so it's his managerial debut for Chelsea, but it's also his Champions League managerial debut. Yes, he's never actually managed a team in the Champions League before. The closest he came was, of course, managing Ostersunds, who he actually got to the Europa League. But of course, that is the second division, or the secondary cup of European football. The Champions League is where the big boys metaphorically play, and it's going to be Graham Potter's first taste of managing a club in the Champions League. Of course, he'd have preferred to, gotten a couple of, at least one league game of managerial experience before that, but unfortunate events that, of course, would include, the death of Queen Elizabeth II and the police problems that would, of course, follow matches. There was a postponement there. There was also a postponement second time around. Remember, this weekend, they're not going to be playing their match against Liverpool, so it's a tough start for Graham Potter, but of course he's managing Chelsea. There wouldn't really have been any such thing as an easy start. Red Bull Salzburg, however, are not a team that you should be taking lightly. They are a competitive side. They come under the Red Bull umbrella of teams, and they do have a very holistic approach to developing players and playing a certain style of football. So that makes them a dangerous side. In fact, they were very, very good against AC Milan as well, and it won't be an easy test for Chelsea despite the fact that they'll be playing it in front of home crowds. Now, Real Madrid, on the other hand, had a very good start to their Champions League defense. They lodged a comfortable 3-1 win over Celtic, and they would, of course, fancy their chances against RB Leipzig, although I must again point out that Leipzig are not a team that should be taken lightly at all. They do have a good style of play. They do have, of course, an informed Timo Werner, who you remember left Chelsea just at the end of this summer. So they do have some decent players in and around that side. They have a good style of play. I don't think Madrid are going to be finding it that easy, but they will still start the favourites for this particular match, because again, Madrid in the Champions League are a whole different kettle of fish. And don't forget, they do still retain the core of that side who did win the title in the last season. The other interesting match, and this one is, of course, between FC Copenhagen and Sevilla. You'd remember that Sevilla, of course, both of these teams, in fact, have made a losing start to the campaign. Copenhagen, of course, lost out to Dortmund. Sevilla lost out and were thrashed, really, by Manchester City. So for both of these sides, absolute must-win encounter. You don't want to be starting on the back foot, especially when you're in the same group. It's Man City and Dortmund. So interesting match for both of these teams, but Copenhagen have the slight edge for two reasons. One, of course, it is their home match, and secondly, Sevilla have been in fairly poor form so far this season. So again, Copenhagen are the favourites, but don't just count Sevilla out just yet. And of course, there is Juventus and Benfica who will be taking on each other in, of course, Juventus's home ground. So now this one is, of course, an interesting match because it does feature two heavyweights. Although again, Juventus are, as of now, quite a few classes above Benfica. So they are, of course, starting as favourites. They do have the better players. Don't forget, stars like Dusan Vlahovic, Weston McKennie, they do boast a much more star-studded side, even though they've had a fairly mixed start to their season under, Massimiliano Allegri. But of course, they are the better side on paper, and they do at least have, goal scorers. Benfica, you'd remember, ended up losing out Darwin Núñez to Liverpool this summer. But again, Benfica are not a side to be taken lightly. They are one of those sides that can sell good players and still thrive. So I'm expecting this to be one of those underrated matches of the night. Let's see if they prove me right or wrong as time goes on. And of course, one of those matches which many people would be interested in due to the star power of PSG, but not really a match that neutrals would be interested in, is of course PSG's encounter, their away encounter against Maccabi Haifa. Now again, Maccabi Haifa are not really fancied to be doing much in this tournament, of course, and you'd remember that PSG made a very good start to the their campaign. They beat Juventus quite easily. It wasn't really much of a challenge for them, even though Juve played well for spells in that match. PSG looked the more comfortable side, and you would expect a team that boasts forwards like Messi, Neymar and Kylian Mbappe to be putting Maccabi Haifa down pretty easily. But of course, a surprise, I won't rule it out, but I would say that it is highly unlikely that Maccabi Haifa can get away from this match with any kind of points whatsoever. And the last match, which we'll be discussing here, but what for me should be the match of the night, Manchester City versus Borussia Dortmund. Again, these are two sides who have very, very different ways of functioning. City, of course, have billionaire owners, one of the best sides in Europe and the best side in England. They've won the league 4 or 5 times in the last few seasons. Dortmund, on the other hand, are very much a club that, of course, rely on player sales to remain, to sustain the club. But they are always a side that, like I was mentioning earlier, Benfica can generally come out stronger even when they sell players. And the advantage that BVB have is that they have a squad that has a lot of mix of youth and experience. In fact, for me, the player who I'd be watching out for from the Dortmund side would be Jude Bellingham. I think that guy has serious talent, and he could very well pose plenty of problems for City in midfield. Of course, it's also a homecoming of sorts for City's latest signing, Erling Haaland. You remember they signed him this summer from Dortmund. So it will be interesting to see how it is that Haaland fares up against his former side. If his recent form is any indication to go by, he'll probably score a brace in about 10 minutes time. So again, this match does see City as heavy favourites, but Dortmund do have it in them to cause an upset. said, I'm expecting it to be a very good game. In fact, I think this might just very well be the match of the night. Do you agree with me, or do you think some other match might steal the show? Well, you can let us know in the comments, and please don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course, tap the bell icon so that you know when it is we're going live or uploading a new video for you guys. Then you can go ahead and follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram as well. We're on those platforms too. And last but not least, you can download the AajTak app, where you'll get all of the breaking news, not just from the world of football and the Champions League, but from every sport that you please. Don't forget to download the app and join us on Sports Today through the day for all the latest breaking news updates and more interesting stuff that we'll bring your way. Thank you once again for joining us. As always, I've been Shane Dias. I hope to see you all again soon, but bye-bye.